Hi everybody, and welcome to BC Hockey Coaches Club for July 2020. My name is Dave Cunning. I'm the Manager of Athlete Development at BC Hockey, and I'll also be the moderator for tonight's call. Tonight's guest coach is Roger Takahashi from the Vancouver Canucks. The BC Hockey Coaches Club is a mentorship initiative for hockey coaches, aiming to offer coaches the support of mentors from higher levels of the game and to create a feeling of cohesiveness amongst both as we work and learn together in an informal environment. Now entering his 18th consecutive season with the Vancouver Canucks in 2020-2021, the Kamloops-born Roger Takahashi serves as the Director of Strength and Conditioning for the NHL club. His responsibilities there include specialized hockey training and conditioning programs, as well as nutrition for in-season and off-season, as well as recovery programs for injured players to ensure they return to the Canucks lineup in top physical condition. In addition to training active Canucks players, Takahashi is also responsible for overseeing the Canucks minor league affiliate, the Utica Comets, and the club's young prospects, providing training skills, nutrition education, and preparation for the elite NHL level. He is also responsible for aiding in sports science initiatives within the Human Performance Department with the Director of Sports Science, Brian Marshall. Takahashi graduated from the University of Waterloo with a Bachelor of Science in 1989 and also another Bachelor of Science in Honors in Kinesiology in 1991. He has written articles and given talks regarding injury prevention as well as sports training and has lectured at the university level at both Simon Fraser University and UBC. He's actively involved in the Canucks Center for BC Hockey programs as well as being the past president of the Strength and Conditioning Association of Professional Hockey. He is a member of the British Columbia Association of Kinesiologists, the Sports Medicine Council of BC, the American Optometric Association Sports Vision Section, and the National Strength and Conditioning Association as a certified strength and conditioning specialist. So without any further ado, everyone, here's Roger Takahashi. Enjoy.
First thing I want to talk about, just as an aside here, and this is something that is, really close to my heart, is the inclusivity of our sport. And we look at this kind of uncertain world here right now, and lots of the demonstrations going on, especially south of the border here. Hockey is a place that we can make fun for everybody. We can put aside any prejudices, whether it's regarding race or gender or sexual orientation or body type, etc. And we can make it a safe place for all kids and everyone to just come to the rink. And the only thing they have to think about is playing hockey and having fun with other people. And I think this is a great platform for us to really show, the world really kind of our sport and what we're doing. So I just thought I'd start with an aside of that and keep that in the back of your minds as the season goes on here. This talk I got together is really should be probably called "What Makes Today's Athlete Tick," and these are sort of the background things that we go through with our athletes when we're trying to investigate when they have some kind of deficit. So a lot of times when we take a look at simple problems, we always tend to have a simple solution to them, but they're not quite like that. So if we take a look at the first situation, I want you guys, when you look at these 4 questions, to think of the first solution that comes to your mind. So the first one is, well, she needs a better first step. So a first layer solution to that would be, well, let's get her to a skating coach, maybe work on technique more. The second one here is he has no compete. He's on the ice and he just has no compete. Well, what's the first kind of solution here? Well, maybe we get him doing more battle drills. Let's throw some more battle drills in there, okay? Third one here is he needs to put on 20 pounds. He's too small for his size, for his position. Okay, well, maybe we get him on an eating program. Maybe he just needs to eat more. He should be eating all the time. And the fourth one here is she needs to be stronger on the ice. So another first layer solution to that is, well, they're not strong. We'll get them strong. Let's throw them in the weight room a bit. Okay, so maybe get her lifting some weights. So I want you to think of those 4 questions. We're going to revisit those a little bit later. Okay, but those are sometimes the first solutions that come onto our minds, and those are some of the things that we push our players to do. Any player, I mean, not the Canucks players, but just any player. So we're going to talk about the 4 pillars of the modern athlete. So the 4 pillars are sleep, nutrition, activity, and social or mental well-being. So each one of these has sort of anytime that there is an issue with a player, we want to investigate each one of these little facets. So the first one is sleep. Sleep affects everything. Okay, everything's built on sleep. Without sleep, you don't have any energy to cook, you don't have energy to shop and prepare or plan meals. And a lot of times people will be even saying things like, oh, I just got home from work, I'm too tired to even eat. Okay, so sleep affects that. And when you don't have any sleep, you don't have the energy to exercise or increase your activity level. The other thing that happens is you get grumpy, right? And you don't want to socially interact with other people. You get low patience. Your answers to things are not the way that you want, and you don't have energy for practice or games either. The other thing when you're looking at performance is sleep affects the reaction time. Okay, so there are studies done where if you had a goalie who gets 8 hours sleep and there's a shot from the blue line, they can see that shot from the blue line. But if it's 7 hours sleep, then the amount of time, the distance that they see the puck at actually is shorter. And then 6 hours, and then 5 hours, and 4 hours, and so on, until the time comes that they can only react to the puck if they're getting 3 hours sleep when it's really right in front of them. Okay, so that's when you're not sharp. The other thing that happens with reaction time is that sometimes when you have a player that doesn't react to another player coming in on them and making a move, sometimes it's not that they're slow. If you were to get them doing a vertical jump or a force plate jump or a broad jump or any kinds of these measures of imparting force into the ground, they're actually super powerful and super quick. But the thing that's holding them back is sort of the brain to muscle connection, is they don't react quickly enough. Okay, and maybe they don't react quickly enough because they're tired. Okay, so these are all things. So that gets back to our question about the lady in the first question that we had, when she is not quick, she needs first step quickness. The other thing with sleep that happens is that when you get into deep sleep phases or phase 4 sleep, it helps solidify new skills. So what your brain does is it actually replays those skills over and over in your head. Okay, so if you were to learn a golf swing, that's when it happens. Okay, and if you, each time that your body goes through sleep over the hours, it goes through these phases and then resets itself, goes through the phases, resets itself. And every time it goes through those phases through the night, the fourth phase gets longer and longer and longer and longer. So if you only sleep for 3 hours, you never get a lot of that last section of sleep that replays a lot of your technical aspects. So that's another benefit to getting sleep. When you're looking at how much sleep, well, you want to get around 8 hours, but younger players always need longer hours to sleep because they're developing, the bodies are growing. Okay, as you get older, you need less and less sleep. And I can remember my dad used to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and be like, this guy's crazy. And as a teenager, I'd be sleeping until 9 or 10, right? So that's sort of the dichotomy there. Well, how are we going to improve our sleep? What are we going to do? What's coachable? What's actionable? Well, sleep hygiene. And in today's day and age, with everybody with screens, you're going from your phone to your iPad, from your iPad to your computer, back to your phone again. We're getting blasted with this blue light. And blue light helps stimulate the brain and helps stimulate the eyes. And it's funny, like I was investigating this pair of glasses that actually shine blue light directly into your eyes, and it helps reset yourself for things like jet lag. And so you put these glasses on and put it on for a certain amount of time at different times of the day in order for you to get into a different time zone. So actually it's stimulating your eyes, and then here we are doing the exact same thing right before we go to bed. What else you want to do is keep the room cool and dark. Try not to exercise right before you go to bed because you'll be all amped up. Try and get a regular bedtime routine. So that means kind of the same time of going to bed, the same time of getting up, that kind of thing. Use a white noise app if necessary, like the ones that have rain and wind and so on in the back. And the other thing you can do is try and find out sort of your sleep habits. Like do you sleep well when you don't have caffeine over a certain time, or alcohol, or junk food, or these kinds of things. And for kids, it's more like things like video games and sleepovers and junk food and not enough exercise and this kind of stuff. So, and phone use. So that's kind of what you want to look at. Naps, and this is more for our, guys that are, major midget and junior and our guys. Naps, two schools of thought. One school says, well, it disrupts your sleep, but actually lately they're saying that naps are actually good. You can never make up the amount of sleep that you've lost. So if you sleep 3 hours tonight and you sleep 13 tomorrow, it doesn't make up that extra 5 hours, okay? But it will sort of decrease the amount of sleep latency that you have. So what you really want to do is if you're lacking sleep, you want to set an alarm for maybe 20 to 30 minutes maximum for your sleep. Because if you sleep longer than that, like you say you fall out for a nap for 3 hours, you get what we call sleep inertia, which means when you wake up, you're completely groggy and it takes you quite a few hours to get back into the swing of things. So that's not what you want. For our guys, we might even suggest they have what we call a caffeine nap. So prior to them going to sleep, they would, have a cup of coffee. And by the time that the coffee actually metabolizes, then they're awake at that point. So 20 minutes later, they're actually up and they're ready to go. So for adults, that's a solution for once you get into junior and up. The next pillar here is talking about nutrition, and of course, food fuels everything. So most people, most players, and most parents, they know how to eat properly, but they just don't do it due to time constraints, or they don't know how to prepare healthy meals, or it's just habit that this is what I do. This is where I eat in the morning. I swing through Starbucks. I always get the caramel macchiato, and so on and so forth. So a lot of times that's the reason why people don't eat properly. A lot of times it's not knowledge, okay? Sometimes, of course, we forget to eat or we neglect eating. We go, okay, well, I will eat after I finish doing this. And same thing with kids. Like, you'll talk to kids and they'll be like, oh, I didn't eat any breakfast this morning, and I didn't eat anything now, and the only thing they've had is maybe a chocolate bar or something in coming to the rink, and it's already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you want to try and kind of educate them on the importance of eating healthy things throughout the day, right? So when you're hungry, you get hangry, right? And that affects the social well-being of the whole team. Okay, when you get somebody who's grumpy or somebody who's snapping at people or making fun of people because they're hungry. Okay, so that's an easy solution. These are simple things to share with the team. You want good variety when you eat, everything in moderation. Try and eat more vegetables, eat less processed food. Like, none of this stuff is new to anybody, but a lot of times it helps you to just kind of reiterate that to your players. Often the question that I'm often asked is fast food bad? Well, you go back to the things I just talked about, everything in moderation, good variety in food, this type of stuff. Well, if the majority of meals you have are from prepackaged foods, or they're from drive-through meals or something like this, well then, yeah, it's not good. Is it okay to have this once in a while? Sure, it's okay to have it once in a while, You're not going to hell over it, all right? But that's your sort of judgment on that. The third pillar is exercise or regular kind of activity. And right now, our kids, they really need to stay active with all the sort of passive entertainment that kids have in their hands from the time they're 2 years old and up. It's crazy, they're not running around, they're not doing things anymore. Also, you have to look at sports specialization. A lot of times with kids, all they're doing is one sport. When I was growing up, we would play, there would be soccer season, there'd be baseball season, lacrosse season, there'd be hockey season, and you went through these phases. Well, now it's like, okay, it's hockey season, but it's hockey season all year round, and they don't get to learn any other sport or any other skill. So I think it's important when they're exercising to start branching out a little bit and learning different things. Okay. The other thing that's happening too, because of the schedules, is that our hockey practices or our hockey games, they are often the only kinds of activity our kids get. Like, we're not social workers, and we're not, we're not psychologists. That's what we're going to do. And you get way more buy-in, even with our team. Like they see us doing things and they go, okay, well, I guess that's the way it's done around here. And that's what they do. So really lead by example and start putting these things into your own life. And then you can also be a better coach or be better rested, socially better. Your nutrition will be better, so you'll be sharper, these kinds of items. So that's all I wanted to talk about really with the basis, and just get you guys thinking about not just doing a first layer solution, but using these big rocks and these big movers to kind of peel back the layer. And let's take a look at what the actual issue is behind each athlete as we connect with them. So any questions?
I got a couple for you here, Roger, then. Talk about, because we got a lot of coaches here from all sorts of levels. Different levels have different levels of travel. And I know just from, playing junior, playing college, things like that, like sleeping on the road is real tough. And especially if you're in a tournament or if, who knows, maybe just bad sleeper. I could never sleep on the bus. I hated getting to a hotel and having like an hour, in the middle of the day to try to sleep and catch up. But do you have any strategies for road games to make sure players are getting the right amount of sleep so they can perform?
Yeah, it's great that we live in the age that we do. There's a lot of apps actually that we use for players that actually, whether it's just a calming white noise, I don't remember falling asleep and the thing's still playing. And so it's really good. And I would, a lot of them are free too. So like I would really stress coaches getting them, trying them out on themselves, and you'd be surprised how well they work with a set of headphones on, and you'll be lights out. Yep, that's a really good one. I think using something like yoga or something like that to help down-regulate somebody after a game is good. I think the other thing to do is, like we're talking about layers, right? And find out why they're not sleeping. Obviously you're amped up after a game and things like that. But we had one guy who he would always in his mind replay like a bad shift. And he would just beat himself up about it. He was like, oh, why did I do that? I should have done this. Oh man, like this is like, and he just replay that scene over and over and over. And he couldn't sleep because of that. And so we were working with him and we said, look, at like one of the things you can do is have a hard cutoff to your night. So whether it is when you open your locker, or whether it's when you put your suit on and do your tie up, or when you open your apartment door, that's your cue to the game is over. You're not thinking about the game anymore. That hard physical activity of opening the door has now shut that off. And the Twins were great at this. Like they would come into the gym right after a game. They would sit, talk Swedish for a while about the game for like 2-3 minutes, finish the workout, and then they would leave. And as soon as they walked out of the door, there'd be people waiting and different things for photographs and this and that. And they'd be super gracious and they wouldn't talk about the game again. And they just shut it out and they're moving on. And it was incredible to see sort of how professional they were about it. And it's not that it didn't bother them, and it's not that they didn't already talk about it, but they went through the game, and now, beating themselves up about the game or talking about the game, it isn't going to.
A couple questions in the chat here. From Dono here. Roger, what is your caution on supplements for young athletes, for example, creatine?
Well, I would say I got asked a lot about supplementation, and again, you get back to the layers again. We talk about nutrition, and the first thing I would do is like, okay, well, how are they eating? Are they eating a variety of foods? Do a 3-day diet log. Let's see what you eat on a day, when you eat it, how much, let's take a look at that. Because supplements are exactly what the word says. It is a supplement to a regular, good, healthy diet, okay? They were invented to help people who had deficiencies. That's what it was there for originally. And so most of the kids who want to take these kinds of things to gain size or gain strength and things, they're not eating properly in the first place. They're not eating properly. They're probably not sleeping properly. I would say nail all those basics down first. And what kind of an exercise program are you on? Are you on a regular exercise program that's actually done by a professional, or are you just going to the gym and doing what he's doing? So before you hit things like pharmaceuticals, like supplements, do all the basics first, make sure they're done well, and then start to move into that kind of area, which will probably be a couple of years from there.
A good question here from Rod on that topic and everything else. Getting sleep figured out and everything else with supplements. Do you, especially because we got a lot of minor hockey coaches here, do you have that conversation directly with the player? Do you have it with the parent to then to dispel to their player, or where would you? And you've worked, like you said, with Bantams, but also all NHL all the way up. But with the younger groups, what's the most effective bridge of communication to get this and all those topics, into the player's head for them actually doing it?
Well, I think the parents need to be involved. I mean, this is the important thing. Like, you want to make sure that there's a clear avenue of communication amongst the three of you. And because the parents are obviously, they're in charge of food, they're in charge of transportation, they're in charge of putting the roof over the heads, they're in charge of the living environment and all these kinds of items. And I think it's really important to have that effect. And plus, that way everybody knows what we're talking about. The player isn't telling the parent, "Oh, the coach told me to do this." The parent's like, "What? Like what?" So yeah, you have to have all three involved for sure, all three parties. Yeah.
Do you find, especially at the U15 level there and U18 guys, like, do you find? I remember when I was that age, it was a tough pill for me to swallow that I had to start, eating things at certain times of the day and the right amount, things like that. Are players, are they different now? Maybe in your team, maybe they're better than I ever was at it. But are kids easier to get that message to? Are they more receptive to that sort of stuff, or is your experience finding that maybe it's made a little bit too much for them to deal with and that sort of stuff?
I think with the internet and with the trainers out there that are more certified now, it's a lot of kids are doing it. They're doing it before we even see them. Like 15 years ago, like, kids were coming in just doing bodybuilding workouts and eating junk and things like that. They didn't really know how to train, but like in the past 5-6 years, it's completely the opposite. These kids are doing a lot of, like, they're doing mobility work. They're doing yoga and restoration stuff, and then they're doing their different kinds of plyometric stuff that's being measured, and it's a totally different world. Their trainers are way more educated now and getting the message across to players at a young age, and they're following through on it.
A question here from Greg. So Greg asks, he's interested in the training differences in the size of players in terms of these pillars. For example, Tyler Myers versus Quinn Hughes, for example. Are different sizes of players affected differently by the lack of different pillars, or is it just player to player? So I guess, is there a one size fits all for all these things, or do you have to take into account of a larger and smaller player, faster, slower? What's your advice on dealing with applying all these pillars to all shapes and sizes?
Yeah, it is very individualistic. Yeah, everything is just like anything else in training. There's a basic template for it, but then you have to individualize every single thing. I mean, you look at, for example, circadian rhythms, right? You'll have larks and you'll have owls. Larks get up early, owls stay up late, and get up late. And that's, you have to take those kinds of things into consideration when you're flying as well. And so, yeah, like, it's not a matter of saying, okay, everybody needs to eat 5 grams of protein. Everybody needs to eat, 20% carbs or whatever the number is that you're going to throw out there. It doesn't work. You can throw out some general guidelines, but then you have to, again, look further into the athlete themselves. Yeah.
To go a little further, another question here came in. Let's go on this one. In addition to talking directly to players, we kind of touched on already, but what strategies or tools do you suggest we use to better assess our players' mental well-being? Do the same approaches apply, or is that something you got to kind of tiptoe around a little more? Or what sort of things do you do with your players at the NHL level and even your Bantam players to see how they are? Younger kids, sometimes tend to not maybe want to talk about their feelings, or they don't want to, embarrass themselves or show their friends they're not all well there. But some strategies on assessing mental well-being as well.
Yeah, and again, like I said before, like we're not psychologists or anything, but part of our job, because we spend so much time with the players, is that you get to know their personalities, you get to know them, you get a relationship with them, and they do trust you. But I think even in the bantam, like I coached Bantam House the past couple of years, and it's a simple thing. You don't have to try and fix anything. This is the thing. We're not there to fix things. We're there to say, huh, you know, that something doesn't feel right here, you know, and that's opens the door for conversation, or whether it opens the door to talk to the parents or something, and not to say, hey, you know, something's wrong with Jimmy. No, it's just saying, hey, is everything okay? Like, how are things going? And, you know, you're not prying, you're letting the player open up to you, or the parent open up to you, where the parent can say, hey, look, at like, he's having real trouble at school. Like, is there any way that, you know, this is what's going on? So I just thought I'd let you be aware, you know, if he does this or this or this, this is what's happening. You know, we're going through a breakup right now. We're getting divorced, you know, just so you know. And these are the types of things that come out, and you can provide support for, not necessary solutions for, right? And with our players, like, I mean, obviously at our level, we're lucky we have sports performance coaches and all these different kinds of things available at our fingertips. And the NHL has psychologists and things to help as well. But a lot of times, like, we're there thinking, like, to see a player and there's a change in their personality or their performance. And now it's up to us to kind of sort of peel back some of the layers as we notice things going on.
Perry here asks, do you have a strength and conditioning yearly plan that you could share with varieties, cardio, strength, flexibility that we should that should be focused on? So I guess the different parts of the year, obviously off season, in season, but would you be willing to share some info with the group here, Roger? Anything that you could put together?
Well, for us, it's always funny because it's always sort of the question, like, how do I, you know, get fit, or how do I lose weight, or, you know, these kind of generic questions. And we have sort of a template that we follow, but that template is extremely individualistic, you know. And when I look at, so it really wouldn't be applicable to the population here, but some of the things are sort of mainstays. Like, for a young athlete, you have to work on things like balance. You have to work on things like anti-rotation. You have to work on mobility. You have to work on doing a variety of exercises in a variety of situations. And a lot of times, younger players, and we're talking like, you know, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, they don't need to be hitting the weights. They don't need to be in the gym. They need to be doing exercises, but in a game-like situation, like relays and things that can challenge them, like 1-foot balance and eyes closed stuff, that they're teaming up with another person. They're making it fun. They're making it challenging. It's more of a game versus sitting underneath the bench press and pushing 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. That's not the age that we need people doing things like that. But they need to work on shoulder mobility, hip mobility, you know, core strength, core stability, that kind of stuff, ankle mobility. Those are the things that'll make them good athletes. And I think at the end of the day, when you're designing training programs, you want to think of developing a great athlete versus just a great hockey player. Because if they're a great athlete, they will be a great hockey player too.
What's your suggestion here? Because we're all coaching different levels and different ages of kids, but at what age, in your opinion, should kids start to think about strength and conditioning training, lifting weights at all? If any weight, should they focus on body weight? Should they lift a barbell? Things like that. Do they have to come to a clinic and see a professional like you? Should they hire a personal trainer? Should they listen to their gym buddies and watch YouTube videos? Where would you say is a good start, and where age to start at, and where should someone starting go to first?
Well, I think if you're looking at something really structured or organized, you always start with body weight exercises, things they can do on their own, nothing external. And you would start maybe getting into your bantam age kids, or just into your late peewee, like second year peewee, first year bantam kind of age. That's where you start with the body weight type exercises and a lot of single leg work and things like that. You want to prevent sort of the bad habits that creep in and the bad body mechanics. Like somebody can do a single leg squat, but their knee falls always to the inside. Like that's what called valgus. It falls to the inside all the time, which is a higher risk for like MCL strains and things like that. Well, now's an age where you can correct that. But as soon as you put a bar on the person's back, or you hold a kettlebell, or you put a dumbbell, well, now the person's not trying to go up and down, keeping their knee in alignment and things like that. They're trying to just lift that weight up and down. So the goal changes, right? So you have to work on the mechanics first for at least, I would say, at least a good year. And even our guys, they still do a lot of body weight stuff. I mean, we still do obviously external weights too, but we do that as well. So it's part of a program. And I think it would be good for somebody to go and see a trainer, somebody who's certified, somebody who has some knowledge in this, versus just trying to go in the garage and bang out a few reps and throw Instagram on. And you have to remember, like, a lot of stuff on Instagram is there, so people go, holy cow, look at this guy, he's balancing, on a ball, juggling chainsaws, wow, but that's not necessary. So
wanted to swing back to sleep for a second. How long does it take the body, once you've kind of screwed your sleep up and you're playing catch up, how many days, weeks, hours, I don't know, but how long does it take to actually reset your sleep cycle and get back on track with that and
to get your bank account to be even?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Great way to put it.
Well, it's like a bank account. Depends on how long you've been drawn out from it, right? Like if you've been running on no sleep for years, it's going to take you years. Like that's just the long and short of it. But at the same,
well, my son is 4, so it's been 4 years for me.
In saying that though, like you can chip away at it, and you could also get to a point where you're functional and you're better than functional. You know what I mean? Like you might not be optimal, like you might not be at 98%, but you might be at 92%, capability. So, I think it's just something that you have to be cognizant of, and you have to say, okay, well, my bedtime is going to be this time. I'm shutting my phone off. I'm going to do this, and otherwise you can get on your phone, and next thing you know, you're playing Sudoku, and then you're on Instagram, and a guy like you, Dave, you might be doing TikTok dances or something, and next thing you know, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. So you have to be very careful. It's a black hole, right? You can get caught in it.
I think you meant to say Rod in that one. I don't have the app myself, but speaking of screen time, I had another question here in the chat. Like we can't make it go away. It's obviously part of our lives and our kids and everyone else, and they're if you take it away, they're going to want it more, basically. But is there a certain amount? Is there a magic number in your opinion of hours a day, minutes a day that would be okay? Is there an amount that's too much? Is it obviously we talked about the timing from sleep, so we know that already. But is there a certain amount of time you should be outside in the absorbing sunlight with your eyeballs rather than blue light? Or what's your opinion on actual time absorbing stuff from devices?
Well, I think it's like anything else. Like when it starts interfering with your day-to-day activities, then we need to revisit it, right? And like you said, it's just a way of life, like for all of us, regardless. I mean, you look at the phone and you look at the number of pickups that you have in an hour or whatever. It measures all of these kinds of things, but it's an individual basis, and if it starts interfering with your life and getting things done, that's when you need to dial it back and and readjust. Even for kids, you can say, okay, well, this is once you get X, Y, and Z done, then this is when you can use this, and so on. Like it depends on how you manage your household, right? How you parent. So yeah.
Okay, I think everyone wants to know who the strongest Vancouver Canuck is, in the best shape, shatters all the records, and who is on the border between having to be sent to they used to call it Fat Club in my day, Roger.
Yeah, the old Fat Club, yeah.
Bag skates, if we
call it Fat Club, sort of. Yeah.
Can't call it that anymore. But who's the best? Who's the leader as far as the weight room and everything else goes?
Well, it's weird because right now I haven't seen all the players, because what we're doing is we're in separate bubbles. So I'm responsible for the international players right now. So that's all the guys from USA and Europe right now. And that's my bubble. Like I don't see any local guys or guys who traveled without using public transport. I don't see the guys who had to fly domestically or anything. I don't see any of those guys at all. It's weird, right? But that's my bubble right now. So I have 17 players right now that I'm responsible for, and that's it. Yeah.
Do you have direct interaction with their trainers, and do you oversee their program?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. We have, you know, we obviously communicate, but we don't interact. Like, we don't physically interact with each other. Yeah. And they're all separate times, and yeah.
So in a typical world, in a normal world, then the same question, who's that gym leader? Who is the
Kevin Biektel. You would pay for me to say that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, I get this question asked every time, and it's funny. Like, what you do see is you see like junior players being, you know, at a certain level. You see American League players being at a certain level, and you see pros being at a certain level. And at that level, you'll have guys that are maybe slightly better in cardio, guys that are slightly better in power or strength. They're different items, but they're all up in this echelon. You know, like, there aren't anybody in the NHL who are down here that are playing. Like, they all have something special that they're bringing physically, as well as obviously skill wise. So it's not an easy question to answer by any stretch of the imagination.
What is your personal and then the team's expectation when players come to training camp, as far as the conditioning they're in? Do you have a standard they have to, you know, be able to lift a certain amount or run a certain distance or whatever it is, for the NHL and Utica, and even, I guess, even, you know, for the players that we might be coaching lower levels, like, how do we get them on that path of, hey, look, like, a junior hockey, you expect to do this, a pro hockey, you expect to do this. Like, what are some of the standards that you see set, so it's not as much of an eye opener when you just get there and, oh my goodness, I should have been in better shape? Like, what sort of standards, entry level standards do you see at those levels?
Well, it's interesting because the NHL Combine that runs, it has a variety of tests that are run, but not like every NHL club has a different set of tests they run. It's crazy, but there's no standardization, even down to the point of what body fat measurement you take varies from club to club. So some clubs will have guys do like a 2-mile run. Some will have a 300-yard shuttle. Some will have a on-ice beep test. Some will have like a figure-8 test on the ice. Some will have like just sprints that they do, like a Wingate. Like, it's so varied across the board that I think what you need to do is, if you have a player that's going to the Combine, then you get them ready for the Combine. That's easy because there's a set number of tests, and they're the same, and everybody knows what they are, and that's number one. But if you're going to Dallas Stars camp or you're going to the Winnipeg Jets camp, they're going to do two different things. So that's when you need to talk to the performance coach or the strength coach and figure out what those are going to be. Is there going to be any on-ice testing? You know, these are the types of questions you want to ask. Then you're going to get ready, because, you know, if the club does a bike test, like we do like a assault bike test, like a 5-miler and under 11:25, like, okay, other teams don't do a bike test. Maybe they might do a running test, you know? So it varies, right? Some people do a VO2, some do a Wingate on a treadmill, some do it on a bike, some do 30, some do 45. It's crazy. Yeah, it depends on what the club's looking for.
Do you personally speak with other strength and conditioning coaches and directors with the other teams, or are you just in your own silo, or do you guys kind of work to have a sort of set of standards? Or, like, I obviously just said it's different, but do you have any sort of things that you have universal amongst you?
No, we talk actually all the time. It's funny. So I've been around here since 03, and when I first started, like, none of the strength coaches talked to each other. You just walk by in the hallway, wouldn't even say hello. It was really kind of hush back then, but now everybody talks. We got a really good organization called SCAF, which is the Strength and Conditioning, Association of Pro Hockey, and we talk all the time, and it's been good sharing information. You have a better voice with the NHL too, so we have some say in the way the combine runs and the tests that are developed in there. But each organization is left to their own devices. So some organizations are really scientific based. Some organizations have lots of money to spend in that area. Others don't. So like for us, for example, like we have dual force plates. We have a Motion 1080, which is an isokinetic machine. We've got all sorts of bells and whistles, but not every team has that, right? So then, and a lot of times they'll base their testing around what they have.
So if you're like me, you're a coach at minor hockey level, and you don't have a bona fide strength coach, so a lot of stuff falls on your shoulders. And you know, we're mid-July here, and September, whatever our hockey season's having to look like, something's coming around in September, but we got to have our players ready. So if you were me, and for your Bantam team, Roger, I don't know if what the guy is there, if it's you or someone else, but what sort of things would you be preparing for your players now? Would you have them on some sort of program mid-July through August? And what sort of frequency, maybe in season as well, would you doing if you were the minor hockey coach that was responsible for that section through your season?
Well, I would say if it's minor hockey, again, like you have to be fairly, you know, it has to be at a fairly serious level to get anything kind of regimented, I would say. You know, like with my Bantam House team that I have, I wouldn't ask any of those players to start, you know, training and these kinds of things unless they were interested. Unless there's an interest in it, then I would definitely help them out. But you know, with our house league, our players are playing for fun. Like they're not doing it to make the NHL, or they're not doing it to be, you know, extremely skilled out there. They just want to go and have fun, right? So I think you have to understand what is the reasoning for the training, number one. And if it is at a high level, like a midget AAA or whatever, something like that, then yeah, then now we can get something organized. And again, that gets back to building a program through mobility, making sure you assess the players and seeing what their strengths and weaknesses are. What style of play do you play? Do you play a run and gun, like two-way game? Like you play a high defensive game? How are you going to build your players from that too? And then I like to craft the testing and the program around the ice, right? So as the off season progresses, as they get closer to the in season, we get more onto onto the ice and start skating more and getting into that position. And that's why I've always said, like, we do a one bike test, but it's not really my test. It's the organization's test. But we also do a couple of on ice tests. And I always tell the guys, like, at the end of the off season, I don't want you on the bike trying to pass a bike test. I want you on the ice, you know. And so I think with your training, like that's the end game. So you focus all the way through the off season to get into that. And the assessment of players is important too. Like, you know, like where are they starting? Like, is everybody able to stand on one leg? Is everybody able to squat on one leg? Are they able to balance and, you know, do like what we call a single leg deadlift kind of position, which is like a swan type of idea, like a figure skater would do. You know, can they lunge equally, you know, on both sides? Can they bend down, touch their toes? You know, how's their shoulder mobility? I'll go through all of that stuff with a player, you know, before you just start throwing an exercise program together and say, okay, well, we need to run 2 miles 3 times a week. I want you to do 15 push-ups. I want you to do 10 bodyweight squats and, you know, 14 burpees. Well, maybe they don't have the capability to do that from a physical standpoint. So let's assess them first, and then let's build the program from there.
Personally, I think the beep test is stupid. Do you agree?
The running beep test or the on ice beep test?
Running, because I hate it. It's bad because I hate it.
Yeah.
I didn't like.
Well, so yeah. So this is the, I guess the debate is that I would rather do something on the ice than run. Like a lot of hockey players are notoriously bad runners, but they're great skaters, right? So now you're taking a test that is supposed to be a metabolic measurement, but sometimes the guy has a poor score because mechanically he's a bad runner, right? Like he can't stop start, he doesn't have a good stride length, you know, these kinds of things. And but you get him on the ice and he's lights out. He'll be the fastest guy out there. You could skate for days, and yet you're cutting him because he didn't meet a certain standard on a beep test, a running test, right? And so what we've done is we have actually a on ice beep test, which the cadence stays the same, but the distance of the cone keeps getting further, like by 3 meters, 3 meters, 3 meters every single stage. So you go back and forth 8 times, and then the cone goes further, back and forth 8 times, cone goes further, but it's always 8 seconds, right? And what's great about that test is it's an aerobic capacity test, but it's on the ice. So the guys are skating. You'll never get the argument, oh, I don't do this, okay? It has a built-in warm-up because the first 4 stages are super slow, and guys are at the cone and they just sit there until the beep goes. And then it gets gradually further and further, so I have to skate faster and faster. So it has a built-in warm-up. And the cutoff is great too, because by the time you reach about between the 6th and the 9th stage, the cone is so far that you're booting it to the cone, but you can't make it before the beep goes. Like you're a half an ice length away from the cone. So it's a great end point too. Like you go right to exhaustion without killing, like actually challenging yourself to the point where you're going to hurt yourself by trying to make that last foot. So it's great. We use it as a return to play type of situation. We use it for skating efficiency. Like you can get a lot of bang for your buck over a simple test.
All right, fine. It's not as bad as I thought.
No, the actual running beep test, I don't agree with. I don't like the running test. No.
We'll take it.
But again, like you do what you can do. Like if that's all you have, then that's what you use, right? You know, you have to watch, right? You know.
Totally. A couple questions came in here. I'm going to bomb through them. I think we already have this one, but correct me if I'm wrong. So Derry just asks, do you make an individual training, nutrition, sleep plan for the off season for every player on the Canucks, minor league and prospects as well? I think it sounds like you've been kind of tailoring the individual stuff. Do I have that right? Or
yeah, like we have a like the minor league, I oversee it, but we have a strength coach down there, Nate, and he does a great job down there. So he's more in contact with those players. And then up in our area, like we have an athlete management platform called Conduct, and that goes through like their phones, and everything's on there that they'll need. So the programs are on there. You click on the program, yours comes up. You can click on the exercise, a video. You can fill in your weights. You can do all sorts of stuff off of it, and that's how we get the programs out, and that's how they tweak them and these kinds of things. One thing you have to remember at our level is that with the agreement with the CBA between the PA and the NHL, the players themselves technically aren't required to do anything in the summer. Like the NFL, they don't actually have to do it. They all do, obviously, because they want to keep their jobs, but there's no stipulation mandate that they have to do anything. The other thing is that they're not required to send anything to us, so it's actually illegal for clubs to track data, at least since the last CBA, since the 04 lockout. So they can't send things like, I can't ask them, you know, okay, what's your VO2, how much did you bench today, you know, what's your squat weight, what's your body fat. Like I can't ask those questions. So they don't want anything that you can make a database out of. So a lot of times it's tough for us. Like we'll send a program out to a player, but it's up to the player to do the program. And we always say that you don't have to do our program, but we know if you do our program, you'll be in really good condition when you come to our camp. But what's great about it, like I said before, the trainers are out there now, are super knowledgeable. So you might have somebody who goes away to Sweden and works with a trainer, and then we just communicate with that trainer. We share our program, we look at their program, we add and subtract things, we give suggestions to them and say, hey, look at, like, this is what we've seen, what you see over there. And when you work together like that, you can get a great product at the end. So that's the other thing we tend to do with our guys. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I had no idea that was illegal, but that's fascinating. Greg's got a question here. Greg asks, how do players' off-season workout plans come together with a mix of your information and the trainers all over the world? What if you get, I don't know, Quinn Hughes says, hey, Roger, I've been doing kettlebell swings on the Swiss ball, and it's awesome. And all of a sudden, how do you, when those worlds collide a little bit, then maybe they conflict with what you would be saying. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think first, you don't want to be adversarial with the trainer, right? You want to talk to them. You want to find out what their reasoning is behind it. You want to get some ideas from them as to, you know, any changes that they can make. And then you want to put your suggestions forward and say, hey, look at, like, these are the reasons why maybe we could try this instead, or have you thought of this? The other thing too, a lot of times, if you're going to see something that's really that could be detrimental to an athlete, like from an injury standpoint, we would get our athletic trainer or our medical officer to give them a call and say, hey, look, this guy has a history of, disc bulging. So this kind of position is actually aggravating that area, like, just so you're aware. And you make it to the point where the trainer understands that it's their liability now, that they are aware of the problem now. And if they're still doing it, they're going to be held liable for whatever happens, right? So, but it usually doesn't come to that point. It comes more to the point where you're trying to work together again and saying, hey, man, like, that's a cool exercise, but, what are you thinking when you're doing that? And away you go from it. Yeah. And you do talk to the player too, just say, hey, look at, like, I know you're working with this guy. I took a look at the program, like this kettlebell swing on the ball, like, how do you feel doing that? Oh, I love that exercise. Okay, well, these are the risks involved. I talked to the guy, maybe you want to try this, right? Oh, okay, that makes sense. And away you go. Because at the end of the day, the trainer is going to listen to the player because the player is paying the bill.
Just so everyone's clear, nobody should do a kettlebell swing on a Swiss ball. That's a terrible idea. That has no.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear,
Yeah.
I made that clearly up out of thin air. Anyway, I kind of talked about this, but another question came in. What should you do as a coach? And in this case, if you're maybe not a versed strength and conditioning coach, but if you happen to be the strength coach as well, if the players and maybe in the season aren't buying into your programming and they're off to their, my trainer has me doing this, and somebody, like, maybe you got that drill queued up and it's like, no, my guy tells me to do this. And if you've already mentioned not being adversarial, but if you do have that interaction where there's a little bit of dissent in there, how would you suggest, if you have already dealt with it already, but how would you suggest people deal with that?
Yeah, it's the same situation. Like I always try and nip it in the bud. So I get a hold of all of their trainers during the off season, and I try and form that relationship early. And I mentioned to them, hey, like, you're welcome to come in. Like, if you're in town, give me a call. Like, I meet you. I want to talk shop with you, and all these kinds of things, and get them on board early, because you know what, like, we can learn things from them too. And I always tell the guy, hey, man, like, you're with this player for the entire off season. Like, you're seeing them for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is, 3-4 times a week. Like, you're going to have a really good bead on what this athlete is like over this off season. So you're my eyes and ears. I'm relying on you to help me, make them a better athlete. And so when you come to the in season, any kind of suggestions that you have are welcome. And we've had a couple of trainers that have done that, and then they've said, hey, look at, like, this guy on the ice, like, this is what I noticed. I've been working with them for 12 weeks now, and this is one thing that we've really been hammering away at, and do you mind working on that in season? And it's like, yeah, for sure. So that's usually the case. We haven't really had players that have said, screw you, or I'm doing this and I don't believe in your stuff. Yeah, we haven't really had that kind of situation, because we form those bonds with their trainers and stuff like that. So we've been really lucky with that, knock on wood. Yeah, but that's the way we've approached it from day one. So yeah.
Okay, Dono's got a couple questions I'm going to mash together here, hopefully. But Dono asks, young players seem to be on ice all year long. Spring hockey, ice through July and August, and then into the minor hockey season. But observing at the same time, the pros don't generally go on the ice in the off season until August sometimes. What is the balance when ice is beneficial? And adding to that question, he says, we know overtraining for one sport is not good, but despite possibly playing another sport, they still do that on ice training. Is there just a point where you should just do nothing? Should you run, hockey into baseball season, into soccer season, into lacrosse season, and train the whole time? I mean, it seems like a recipe for disaster, although we are, we know, just like you said earlier, being a full athlete rather than just a hockey player. But any thoughts on that? Or I guess generally overtraining is a big topic anyway, but anything you could elaborate on that realm?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. With our off-season training program, like, we build in deload weeks specifically to our program, whether it's probably roughly every 4 or 5 weeks, we'll have a deload week where there's some active recovery being done, but the player really doesn't have to do much. And we try to schedule it around, big holidays, like July 4th example, that week would be an off week, right? Because we know guys are going to have family, things to go to and stuff like that. So we try and build it around there. We know the guys are going to be off anyway, so let's build it into the program. Let's let them relax a little bit. Let's deload them for that time, and then we'll recharge and we'll get back at it, and we'll go another like four weeks or so, and we'll deload again. And that keeps the program fresh, but it also regenerates the body as we go through. When you talk about younger kids, it should be sort of the same idea, in which, they shouldn't be on the ice all the time. Like, I don't think it's good. And experts have shown that. There's study after study after study that the people that are saying that it is good are the people selling that stuff, right? They're not the people that are actually studying it and seeing the effects of this on players. They're the people selling the ice and selling the programming. So, you have to kind of pick and choose what you want to do on the ice. And it's funny, I was talking, this was a few years ago, when one of our players came back from the off season, said, "Oh, like how the skating go?" And he was skating with maybe his ex-junior team or something like that. And he said, "Oh yeah, it's pretty good. I was skating with so-and-so." And he goes, "Yeah, it's weird. Like, the kids these days, like, their stick handling is unbelievable because they got a skills coach, and they've got, their skating is unbelievable because they got a skating coach. And their shooting is unbelievable because they got a shooting coach." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, but none of them can pass. Like, they can't set themselves up to get in the passing area, and they can't pass or anything. They can't make any plays because that's something that they don't study on their own. They can't pay somebody for that, right? And so none of them do it. So instead of playing the game, they just do these specializations, and that's what they've been doing. And like you said, they've been playing hockey like 12 months of the year, right? So I think it is beneficial to do different skills, like to get a skating coach or get a shooting coach or a skills coach. I think all of those things are important. I also think it's important for kids to have fun and just go out on the ice. And then it's really important to get a mental and physical break from the rink. I'll tell you a story that I've told many times. We went to we were playing in Winnipeg, and it was I think it was Hank's 1,000th game or something like that. And we went out for dinner after with the team, just a quick meal. And they were sitting at another table with this guy and this girl. And I was just like, "Oh, that's weird. Like, who are these people?" Roughly around the same age, didn't know who they were. And they're chatting away. And then the next day I was talking to them about it, and I said, like, "Who's that guy?" And he said, "Oh, that guy was an unbelievable player in Sweden, like better than us, way better than us. Like, growing up, he was unreal." And I guess his dad really pushed him to play hockey, and he played hockey all the time. And he ended up getting drafted and played in the American League a little bit, and then quit hockey because he was so burned out. He just ended up hating hockey. And like, that's what happened. And then the Twins said, "Yeah, he was just unbelievable. He's such a good player, But you do get mentally burned out, right? So you have to take a break from the rink. John Tortorella, like, when we had him, he was a guy who, believed in time off. He believed in family time. He knew social pressures, and he said, "You know what? Tomorrow I don't want anybody at the rink. I don't want you coming in, taping your stick. I don't want you coming in and getting massaged. I don't, I don't want you at the rink. Just go home with your families. Like, we're away enough. Like, spend some time, And that's what he would do, and that's important. It's a long season, so for kids, I think it's important that they get away. And I'm not saying don't do skill work or anything like that. That's important too, but pick and choose your times, and make it so it's the kid's decision, right? It's not your decision, it's their decision. So
Right, that's huge for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of what I was getting at, making it, kind of bombarding them early with nutrition and fitness, things like that, too young, and that can lead to that burnout, I think, if it's too much of it. But I just need that you brought up Tortorella, because this is probably our last question here. Derry had this question. And imagine in your nearly 20 years at the team now, you've seen all sorts of coaches and GMs and things like that. And you've already alluded to having different approaches. But Derry's question here was around, does the coach or GM have input on the training plans? Example, Verten and Hughes, Myers may need different points of improvement. Is this driven by the players at NHL level? Do you have full carte blanche and you say, "Hey, no, this is what they need to do"? Did Tortorella tell you, "No, Roger, you need to do this with this player"? Or what's at your level, the level of input from the external parties that maybe not the specialists in your realm?
Well, Torts never really, like, he trusted what we were doing, but at the same time, like any coach, like we're a team, right? So it's not just my opinion of what they need. It's the coach's opinion, it's the GM's opinion, it's the player's opinion, it's everybody together. That's how we make our plans, right? And we have to have a common definition of what it is. So if you say first step quickness, you know, what is that? What does that mean to a GM? What does that mean to a coach? What does that mean to the player? So we all have to be on the same page. And we get together and we discuss those things on ice and off ice, and we help build the program from there. And I can remember, like, they'll give you the suggestions about what they see and what they need to work on, but then it's up to us in our area of expertise to make that happen. You know, so I remember when I was hired and Brian Burke said to me, he said, hey, look it, man, I hired you because you're the expert in your field. If I got to talk to you, then we got a problem. You know, that's the way he said it, you know. So so they may say this guy needs X, Y, and Z. Now figure it out. That's my job, you know. So yeah, it's been good working with all the coaches, and the communication has been great. You know, it is a team atmosphere. Yeah.
Who's been the easiest coach and/or GM to deal with in that respect, and who's been a little more challenging to get your messaging understood?
Hold on, is this thing still taping? No. You know what? Like, everybody gives John Tortorella bad press, because what people see is they see him flying off the handle and things like that. But he is such a good man. And we went to when we went to the Gardens, like in New York City for the first time, every single person in that building came up and they would ask us, like, hey, where's Torts? Like, from the guy that parked the car to the security guard to the guy who mopped the floors, they would poke their head in. They'd be like, hey, is Torts here? Just tell him Joey said hi. Like, he knew everybody's name. It's unbelievable, this guy. Like, he even to this day, like, he'll come up and when he sees me, he'll ask me how my wife is, the dogs, the kids. Like, he goes through like everything. It's like, he's got kind of, you know, he's got the on ice, like, driven, like, very you know, passionate about the game, and then he's got the other side of it, which is like, hey man, this is what's important in life. Like, your family's important, you're important. Like, you know, he's an unbelievable human being, you know. And I've been lucky, like all of our coaches that I've, like, my first coach was Mark Crawford, and you know, I know people talk about Winter Crow, you know, I see him screaming on the bench and everything. Like, I remember when playing Arizona and the ref came to the side bench and he was talking to Gretzky, and he yells down, hey, you can get his autograph later. He was a funny guy, and you know, he was a guy who trusted me in my position, being, you know, first year in the league and stuff like that. I had a great time with him. Alain Vignon was always funny with us, and you know, we used to laugh because we used to say, oh, here comes the head strength coach, or he would always have a suggestion for us and stuff. A great man, you know. Willie was always good, you know. Yeah, like, you know, Greener's funny. He's a great guy too. Like, we've been so lucky. We haven't had guys that are, you know, that we've been adversarial with, and you know, all our GMs have been really, really good. You know, Dave Nonis and Berkey and Mike Gillis, and it's been, you know, Jim, we've been lucky. Our organization, we've been really lucky. Yeah.
Well, maybe on this one, and just to build on that same question, if I'm the coach and you're my strength coach, Roger, how can I make your life the easiest? And it seems like it's really a relationship built. A couple things you just alluded to there, but how can I make yours and I's between coach and strength coach relationship the healthiest, and thusly make all the athletes get them to where they have, and, you know, allow you to have that breathing room to do your thing? And what have you gleaned, I guess, in your years from what were the best coaches to work with that allowed you to do your job to the best of your abilities?
Well, I think first and foremost is regular communication. That's number one. Second thing is expectations, what your expectations are as a coach. What do you expect your players to be? Each player, what are your expectations? What do you see? And then the coach holds the hammer. Like, the GM and the coach holds the hammer. I hold the hammer in the weight room, so I can make people do things, but outside of that's my realm, right? And if you want a player, you know, to buy in and you have to have some tough love, then you need the coach on your side. You need the coach to back you up and say, hey, get in there, do this. This is my expectation. Or, you know what, you're going to be sitting next game, or whatever that might be. So having that backing from the organization is huge too. But I think the number one thing is communicating and making sure that your expectations as a coach are exactly the same thought as the strength coach, right? So you're going to work together. That's the best thing. You don't want any surprises as a coach. Like that's, as you know, that's the worst thing to happen, right?
For sure. That's all the questions I have. Last kind of chance for everyone here. Last thing, if you want to chip anything in the chat or out loud, now is your time.
Yeah, anything?
Not hearing anything.
Yeah.
Well,
here's a quick question to these guys. Like I can see, I don't know how to work this thing. I can't see a lot of faces here. I only see a couple of faces, but I guess my question would be like, what are your guys' backgrounds? Like, where are you coming from? Why did you come to the talk? What are you looking for here? Like, I think a lot of people might have been looking for actual programming, but the programming itself is difficult for me to give out because I don't know your players, right? The first thing starts with assessment and starts with a relationship with a player. That's how you build your program, right? So once you do that, then we can build. But what are guys looking for? Because I can probably answer a little bit better.
James just mentioned in the chat, he's the minor hockey director for his area there.
Yeah.
Derry, Dono, Roy, what teams are you guys working with?
Well, this is Donald Menard. I'm the hockey director in Poco Minor Hockey, and I'm with Yale Hockey Academy as well. And so I'm dealing with a variety of athletes and coaches. And I think the biggest thing is trying to portray the information to a variety of people that come from all walks of life and trying to simplify their world. Cost is sometimes a factor. And also ice time and how you maximize your ice time, because training isn't readily available or accessible to all teams, partly due to the cost of it. And with families, and from a minor hockey standpoint, trying to encourage these, especially the younger players, to be multi-sport athletes at that age and not having to force them to choose one thing. So, I think probably the biggest factors for me is time management for these people and cost.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, you know, when we talk about, first I'm going to talk about hockey in itself, and I think all you guys know when you're doing up your practice plan, like when I would do up a practice plan for my Bantam team, and I would actually run it very similar to the way that we run it with the Canucks. So I would do a quick sort of pre-ice in the dressing room, and I wouldn't cover all the drills. I'd cover like the first 1 or 2 drills, you know, just so that when we get out, they skate around for a little bit. I blow the whistle and it's like, okay, we're doing this drill. And I'll build off of those drills like everybody probably does over the year. So you take the one drill and now we're adding another man. Now we're doing the exact same thing. Now we're adding this pass in and so on. And I always would make it relevant to a game situation, right? And so I would save a lot of time there instead of coming to the whiteboard and talking. And if you ever come and watch one of our practices, like Greener never stops. Like there's no time to even take the guys complain because they're like, God, I can't even take a drink of water. You know, he just goes from drill to drill to drill. And so you kind of, we don't run it quite that hard with the kids, but it is a situation where we are going from situation to situation and building off it. And as this year goes on, guys get to know the drills better. So from a time management point for hockey, that's what we've done. We've also at the beginning of the season kind of helped lead sort of a dynamic warm up with them and explain sort of what the relevance of it is, and then getting the leaders in the group to start leading it, and then from there getting other players involved to start leading sort of the same thing. And as they start going through that warm up, and if you're structuring a warm up, like you want to end with more and more sort of hopping, skipping, jumping, sort of ballistic type movements that are energizing the nervous system. Like that's what you want to end with. You don't want to end with like long stretches or something like that, because you're actually down regulating the system. So we explained to them like the purpose and the structure of a warm-up. We could show them the exercises, and that way they go and they start building off of it. And then we can throw in sometimes goofy things where a kid gets to do whatever he wants and does a funny walk and just make it age appropriate, right? Because they're not robots, right? They're not at our level. So so for hockey, that's what we would do to try and get information through. The other thing, once you get to the higher levels, so say you're midget AAA, I remember a lot of times the coaches are trying to tell the players this, but the players don't want to listen because you're the coach, right? But call in somebody who's a dietitian, or call in like an ex-player or something like that. And when they hear it from a different voice, it's the exact same message, but then they go, oh, hey, that person knows what they're talking about. It's not the coach. Oh, I'll go do that. And the coach is like, I just told them that for the past week, and that's what always happens. But sometimes they just need a different voice. And it happens all the time. Like, you and your spouse, like you tell her something and then somebody else says, hey, this is a good idea. And they go, yeah, that's a good idea. And you're like, oh, but they don't want to listen to you, right? So you have to take that into consideration sometimes. I understand with trying to be a multi-sport in today's environment, it doesn't always work because baseball is a year-long sport. Hockey is a year-long sport now. It's like, you're committed or you're not committed, right? So it's difficult for players. A lot of times, like they'll play minor hockey and then they'll play baseball, has a little overlap, and then they'll play baseball sometimes. But sometimes it's a matter of maybe not an organized sport, but it's like, okay, well, you finish playing hockey, why don't you go down to the lacrosse box for a while and fire some balls? Get on your bike. Let's go mountain biking. Go mountain biking with them or something like that. You just need to change up the activity, and sometimes that helps for parents. I remember I gave a talk once at a midget AAA place, and you want to, like you're saying, like cost is sometimes an issue, and you do the best with what you have. And they were asking me, a husband and wife came and they're asking me about nutrition and what they should give their son to eat. And she was asking, well, are organic chicken breasts good? And the answer to that question is, yeah, they're great. Like organic chicken breast is good. And she hit her husband. She goes, I told you. And it's like, it's good, but it's what you can afford. You do the best with what you can afford. Like if regular chicken breast from Superstore is what you can afford, well, then that's good, right? It's better than no-name chicken fingers, or it's better than, and so on. And you go down the list. What is good, right? And so it's important to, like, a lot of families have this expectation that they see the Canucks, and what we eat, how we train, and they think, okay, if I'm going to make it, I got to do exactly what they're doing. Well, no, you don't. You have to do what's best for you, for your money wise, and for your lifestyle and your age appropriate group, and then build off of that. No, I don't know if that helped you or not, but
Yeah, I thank you, and I totally agree with you. But that as from a minor hockey coach standpoint, seeing the variety, obviously the levels of commitment is going to be different from the midget level or U18 level now, down to where Adam and the younger kids. But the challenge for coaches that they have to remember is the standardization can't be quite as strict, because you're dealing with a dynamic of people and their time management. Some people, it's their only child and they have time to run them everywhere. And then there are other times when you have, a family that's got 4 kids and they're coming in with their hair on fire, ripping their lacrosse or soccer stuff off to come. So that is the big challenge, is just to try and get people on board, but still be sympathetic to the situation that they're in, and have the rest of your team understand where they're coming from or who's coming from. So it's basically working off of a generic template with regards to the level that you're at and the commitment level that you should be at with U18 down to U11 or younger, and just trying to find the balance for that.
No, absolutely. And it's funny, like I've seen teams where the coach gets mad at the kid for not showing up on time, but the kid's not driving, like the kid's 10 years old, and like you said, they got 4 kids. One just finished piano lessons, and the other one was in ballet, and they're driving everybody over to the rink. And this is the best that mom or dad could do, is get them there, and they're right on time. They're just getting dressed. Like it's I agree. Like, as long as everybody knows that, and I always used to put the emphasis that, hey, the main thing is you made it. You made it. Like, this is great. Like, let's get on the ice. I don't focus on the negative end of it. I focus on the, hey, like, you're here. This is great. Like, let's get to work. This is going to be awesome. Like, and that's where you have to focus, instead of the first thing the kid hears when he walks into the rink is, you're late, 10 push-ups. It's like, my mom, like, and then he's getting mad at mom for being late. And then, it just starts like that's not what we're there for. Right. In 10 years from now, is it going to make a difference that he was 5 minutes late? No, but you just want to build good habits. Yes, but you can do it in a positive way. And I agree with you. Like you said, let the team know, let everybody know, like, go about it the exact way you're doing it, and I think things will be fine that way.
You had a couple other responses there. You had some H4 kids being coached by Riley. Coach Perry said he's coached minor to AAA level, wanted to get into university level of women's hockey. Natalie is head coach at Bantam, single A female. And she notes, really trying to emphasize to my players the value of off-ice development and how it transfers to their on-ice game at that level. And then Derry has also said a U17 prep. And he also says that, but I know it's a big difference with almost age levels right up to the NHL, and just was interesting. So it was interesting to hear from you at your level there. So we got quite a range. Looks like the youngest possible all the way up to the oldest here. So that's who you've been talking to.
Yeah, and it's funny, like when you look at on ice, if you're a coach and you're on the ice and you got an H4 level, like everything that you're developing is exactly the same way as you would do it for off ice. Everything's game based. Like, you make games out of stuff, even though you might be working on single leg balance or hopping. It's a game, right? For off ice. Same thing with stick handling on ice. Well, maybe you're doing a game out of it with a big ball or something fun where the kids are just ripping around, and that's what you do. You don't just work on the exact skill, but you make it fun. And that's what you do with off ice for that age.
I think Roy's trying to jump in there. Roy, did you?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, guys. I've enjoyed the conversation tonight. I really like the format of it. I know you asked for some things that we might be looking for. I've coached a little bit everything from Adam to Tier 2 midget and midget girls team as well. So there's a lot of different aspects. One of the things I've always found the most difficult as a coach, and I've enjoyed tonight to hear, was the different goals of each of your players in minor hockey, where some of the players are more driven and want to go to university, and some of the players are finishing out their grade 12s and just having a great time playing. And I really enjoyed listening to the different ideas and how important it is to build up a rapport with each of the players. And the 4 pillars of it, I really like the idea that one of the things we've seen, the social media, the sleep, and the activity, the away from the ice stuff has become such a huge distraction to some of our players. The on-ice stuff, when you're a coach, teaching a trap or a 1-2-2 isn't rocket science. It's how to get the kids to the rink, how to get them to have fun there, and how to build a rapport. And I remember when I wrote my initial ideas of being a coach, the first course I took, and I wrote down I want to be a better communicator to my players than the coaches I played for. And it didn't seem like that massive of an endeavor, but it has become a much more profound effort than I thought, because you think you have all this time with individual players, and often you don't. So it's great to hear you point those things out to us, and we need to be aware of those, look for those, and then try to incorporate it into each player, how we coach them and what we ask from them.
Yeah, 100%.
What levels are you coaching, Roy?
I've coached a little bit of everything.
You muted yourself again there. Just flip your mic back on there, Roy.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Got her back on. Okay, sorry. I coached a little bit of everything. Tier 2 midget boys. I coached a single A midget team that we won a provincial girls tournament with. So we've coached a little bit of everything, and I found it to be really challenging. And I know I've been to a couple of things with Canucks Coaching Clinic, and I've enjoyed these more relaxed conversations where it isn't about one specific program or a thing. So Dave, when you're planning these, having a chance to talk just like this and answer questions, I find that to be a much more effective platform than following a PowerPoint.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Really happy to hear that.
It's interesting you say that. I did a talk once up at UBC. It was just a strength and conditioning talk, and the people were like, okay, well, so what topic are you going to talk about? And I said, like, to be honest, like the topics that we would give, there might be 10% of the population in that audience that says, wow, I really want to listen to how to impart force production, you know, da 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 da. But the 90% are just like, this doesn't really apply to me. But where the most gold, I guess, in the conversation was always the Q&A at the end. So I said to them, I said, look, instead of putting a topic out there, why don't we just do a Q&A for like an hour? I'll just stand there and then people can ask questions and we can hit so many topics. And it was great. It was, you know, I learned some stuff from them and vice versa, and it was awesome. And I really like that format too. I agree. It's great. You get your answer.
Yeah, I've had a chance to be to a couple of the Kamloops clinics, and Ken Hitchcock was there. And I mean, he loves to tell stories anyway. And when you had a chance to sit across the table, you know, he just makes it completely informal.
Yeah.
But there was some great information to be shared there in a context that was so much more informal. And I got so much more out of that. And I could take that home and use it a lot more than I could a handout or a spreadsheet, you know. So I really think you're on the right track with this, and it gives a chance for all of us to have some input.
Yeah, no, I really like that too. I like it because for me too, as a presenter, like I get information from the questions and from the people asking them, and it kind of tweaks me and think, you know what, I'll put that in the back of my mind for later, and I dig it out later and investigate stuff and incorporate it into what we do, and it's a good process for sure.
Again, happy to hear that.
Thanks,
I think we're pointed in the right direction. Don't get Roger going too much on Kamloops there. You're gonna,
Kamloops, go Blazers! Yeah.
I've met Ken as well at HP1/ the Kamloops conference, and I totally agree with you, Roy. I mean, that's such a neat thing, and I think that's what we're really trying to do here is bring a guy like Roger, who's at the NHL level, you know, down amongst us mortals here, and once you realize that you know, Roger's just a great dude like the rest of us here, and we're all trying to learn and get better, and we all love the game. So I kind of want to wrap this up on that point, Roger. We really appreciate you doing exactly that and taking your time out to at our levels get better and ascend. We all want to get to where you are at some point, and we appreciate your assistance today in that endeavor.
Yeah, well, I want to thank each and every one of you people out there who are coaching, and it's a thankless job at times, and you get huge obviously rewards. Everybody knows like just the self-satisfaction you get, you know, hearing a kid say like I had the best time ever today, and that was the best year, and you know, I have so much fun when I'm at the rink, and all these kinds of things that you get to, you know, take away with you, you know, for the next, you know, 50, 60 years with you. You know, those are the things that are going to matter, and you know, we look back at, and even though I've only head coached for a couple of years, and I look back at my teams and I look back at the kids, and it's been a really fun ride. And you know, my 15-year-old, this is the first year that he stopped playing hockey because he's got a job and he's into music now. He goes to a fine arts school and stuff, and it was sad to see him stop playing hockey because you know, we've been going since he was in H1 or 2, and it's kind of the end of an era, and my youngest is 9, and it's going to be a sad day, you know, when I take him to the rink for my last time, you know, but we all have these memories that we're going to keep forever, and you know, it's because of people like you that you know, our sport grows, and you know, all of our kids have such great, you know, sort of experiences, and eventually they're going to be exactly where you guys are, you know, coaching maybe their kids, and that's what we want. So congratulations for all the time and effort you guys put in, that you know, kind of the unsung heroes. It's awesome. It really is.
Rod, everyone who's on the call tonight, and I wrote down on my attendance list, is eligible to win a wonderful prize from Rod. We gave away some signed sticks last month and a signed hat to some lucky coaches. So not only do you get some points for your renewals there and your certifications, you get that. In addition, if that wasn't enough, already speaking to a guy of Roger's ilk, I think is a reward in itself. So, Rod, anything you want to chip in there in the end here?
No, you know what? I'd like to say thanks to Roger for taking the time, and thanks to all the coaches for jumping on the webinar. Hopefully you've took something from it, and when the next one comes around, we'd like to see you on that one as well. So once again, thanks Roger, thanks Dave for setting everything up, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Awesome. We'll end on that note. Thanks again, Roger, for your time, everyone, for being here, and we hope to see you all again next month.